Thanks for spending time with me here on the Retirement Income Source, where it's all about increasing your income. It's all about finding income in your own portfolio that you're not making right now that you could, and you deserve a pay raise. I'm Tim Sparks. Our show is sponsored by Sparks Financial Group right here in the heart of the Bluegrass, Lexington, Kentucky. This show is definitely for you, the listener, whether you're a pre-retiree or a retiree, and you're wanting your retirement to end well. In other words, if you're like me, you want to get all the blood out of turnip. You want to get the most income. And that is a good problem to have in retirement. Today, we're going to be talking about understanding how money works in retirement. What you don't know may hurt you. In other words, if you're leaving money on the table to be in the same market that our clients are, in which most people are leaving money on the table, the question is, do you need extra income in retirement? Think about it for a moment. Didn't you like it every year when you come to the end of the year, the employer gave you extra money? Well, that's what I'm talking about. You have $500,000, for example, invested in the market, which you got mutual funds, and I'm just telling you, the majority of portfolios we see today are primarily mutual funds or exchange traded funds. Exchange traded funds is just an upgraded, reduced cost mutual fund. It's really there's not much difference between the two, because they're just a diversification of stocks or diversification of bonds, or maybe a blend of each, or other investments that are available inside these funds. But at the end of the day, that $500,000, and I'm just going off from a particular meeting that I just now had, they were only getting $4,000 a year from the I in interest and dividends. But yet they were told that they were making on average of 7% a year. And so that's the reason why I decided, it's time to talk about how money works, because this is the biggest confusion I see when people come in. And so, matter of fact, I didn't even start talking about the retirement risk review with this particular client until we started talking about how money works and what that meant, making 7% a year. And not only that, what I did when I looked at the statement made 36% in the last 12 months. And so I told her, I said, the statement here says March 30th of 2024. If you go back to March 30th of 2023, they're saying your account value went up 36%, and 36 point something percent. So I'm just kind of rounding this off to make this simple. Well, that begs the question. If anybody says I made 36% in the last 12 months, that's a really, really good return. Well, I'm sure that most of you got to realize that whenever you leave money alone, in other words, you don't take any income from it, that return could be possible. And I did say the word could be possible. Because, see, when we go to school, we learn something called arithmetic math. So arithmetic math means if I have a positive 36%, and this is assuming you're tracking this perfectly, then 36% of, let's just say, $100,000 means I got $136,000 in my account 12 months later. That's what we learn. Well, when it comes to Wall Street math, it's set up a little bit different. It's called geometric returns. And geometric returns work slightly different, even though they're similar in some ways. But geometric math includes the negatives, the positives, and everything in between. So, so I asked her one question. I said, when I looked at her account and it was worth, let's see here, let's put a number on it, would make it simple versus the amount that she actually had that we were actually assessing. Let's just say she had the day her, and this is really what happened, her account value was $120,000. $25,000. Now, it was more than that, but I'm trying to make this simple. So I asked her, if you made 36%, that means your account value was below 100,000 12 months before. So if you go back and find the statement that you had last year in March and tell me if that's the case. Sure enough, it was worth more than that number. You got to keep in mind, people, whenever the statement says something doesn't mean it's not necessarily true. It's not arithmetic math, what we learned in school. It's not the bottom line. So, is there anything wrong with that? No. There was more likely a 36% return in the investments that she held. Question is, was any of those investments shuffled around or changed in the last 12 months? That's the reason why she didn't make 36%, even though the current investments may have made 36%. Unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion in this, but well, that's the reason why that you want to clear the air and understand how money works. Well, the goal was determine how much income she was going to get in retirement, which was the purpose of the retirement risk report. So what I did is I showed a formula of the 36% based on if she was invested for those 12 months, so that way she can understand that. Now keep in mind, she was looking for a purpose of her money, which was income, not for what the portfolio has done, but how income works, even if it does do something like this, and understanding the negative of spending money and relying on average returns. So total return equals I plus G. This is a great commission report, and I want to get it in your hand so that way it will be probably more understandable as you listen and stay tuned in to this radio show today. And this commission report can be yours if you call 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. And we'll mail this to you or email it, whichever you prefer. Again, total return equals I plus G. It's understanding how money works. In other words, all money some way is used up in these two components that makes up a total return. Again, that number is 888-930-1080. You're tuned in to the Retirement Income Source. This is Tim Sparks, and we're talking about understanding how money works. Just like the commission report I just now was talking about. Total return equals I plus G. I, the bird in the hand, the interest and the dividends that are paid to you. Most of us know that we get interest and dividends in our portfolio. The question is how much? And so if you invested in the market, did you know that you can actually increase the I? Why is that? Because you're looking toward the future. You're looking for income, and you need something that's dependable and more reliable. If you invest for the I, you're going to have a higher probability of getting that. Whenever you focus on the G, the capital appreciation, it sometimes results into a loss. And only that, if you're not getting enough I, you're having to sell shares to come up with the income each and every month. That's a terrible way to go into retirement in hopes that you're going to recoup that back in future years, assuming the markets go up, as at the same time or simultaneously while you're selling shares. That don't even make sense. So I was talking to this lady, and she's wanting the income in retirement, people, okay? Income. So in other words, me as a financial advisor understanding this component, I plus G, the plus G means I may get growth too. That's icing on the cake if I'm in the market just like she is. She's wanting to know the difference between her portfolio and the portfolio that we recommend to our clients. So I showed her that she was getting $4,200 a year after all fees that were being charged. This organization that I'm talking about is a very well known organization. They're very large, or I'm sure they're more than $1 trillion company, and they recommend people to invest their money in a certain way. And so so just because somebody recommends to use mutual funds or ETFs or stocks or bonds doesn't mean they're investing your money for the I, assuming you want more income in retirement and less spending of your principal. That's the reason why the formula TR equals I plus G, get the I up, and then you don't have to worry about spending principal. But the problem is she needed $25,000. So if she's going to take $25,000 and she's only getting $4,000 from the I, guess what she has to do to come up with the other $20,000+? She has to sell shares. So I told her the market could go up, it can go down, it can go sideways in the next 12 months. So if it goes up, you sell less shares. If it goes down, you sell more shares. If it stays flat, you kind of sell a reasonable amount of shares. It doesn't really matter. You're selling to come up with income. So we're going to talk more about total return equals I plus G and getting into the weeds a little bit to be able to help you to understand what makes up a return in your portfolio, so that way you can differentiate for yourself whether you think it makes sense to increase the I and quit focusing so much on the G, the growth. But I like to get a book in your hand called The Retirement Income Store, which is authored by CFA Dave Scranton. And he goes into in depth of helping people to understand the components of contractual investing versus non-contractual and so forth. And this is all about investing for income. And I got a free copy for the first 5 callers of today's Retirement Income Show by calling 888-930-1080. Again, it's 888-930-1080. We'll mail this to you if you are one of the first 5 callers. Free, no obligation book. Great read, 888-930-1080. When we come back, we're going to complete this total return scenario and how to differentiate and to kind of clear the air of what we mean by total return versus income return. You're tuned in to the Retirement Income Source with Tim Sparks. We'll be right back. Thanks for spending some of your time with me here on the Retirement Income Source. I'm Tim Sparks, your host, and this show is sponsored by Sparks Financial Group right here in the heart of the Bluegrass, Lexington, Kentucky. You know, this show is always going to be about the importance of income investing. We're talking today about understanding how money works in retirement. What you don't know may hurt you. And I find that once people understand this formula, total return equals I plus G, interest and dividends plus growth, they finally understand how money works. And most importantly, they also notice how they are running the risk of running out of money sooner. Think about it for a moment. If you can get 3 to 4 times more income that's already going to be paid to you anyway, why isn't it worth trying to find out whether that's the case or not? None of us want to run out of money before we run out of breath. And most of us are always willing to accept more money each and every month if we knew we can get it from income. Most people are not getting income from real income. They're actually having to give up shares and calling it income. Well, there's a significant difference, because if you spend principal, you're slowly eroding your account value. In other words, one day you may look up and your account value may be permanently in trouble to the point where you're going to have to make changes. Changes meaning that you may have to reduce your spending. I don't know if there's anybody I've ever met with that enjoys reducing their spending when they could have otherwise avoided that. You know, Will Rogers made a comment one time, and that's the reason why I always talk about, when I share with you understanding how money works in retirement, it's not that all of us are not intelligent enough to understand money. The question is we don't ever take the time to really in depth try to learn how money works. And so he had a really great quote I thought is important for today, and see if this helps you. I mean, the point of this is not to insult people's intelligence. The point of this is to help you to actually take action. Take action meaning understanding how money works. He said the problem in America isn't so much what people don't know. The problem is what people think they know just ain't so. That is so profound. So My job is to help you to discover how you can get more money on your money. After all, you're trying to make money on your money. Well, you see, when you invest for the I, you're making money on your money. When you focus on growth, you got to hope you're going to make money on your money. So when you break down the total return equals I plus G, and if you look at the 36% total return that was made on this particular person's portfolio here recently, I sat down and I showed this lady how this return was actually broken down over that 12 months. So I looked at the interest dividends. I told her I did an analysis on this. This is real easy to find. Morningstar and other companies use this, but you can even go to Yahoo Finance and so forth to find this out. So we took the whole portfolio as a whole, in other words, and then currently it's earning 1.84%. Now that's in the I. So I put 1.84% under the I. So the portfolio personal return for the last 12 months was 36%. So that means if 1.84 came from the I, that means how much come from the growth? Well, you just do the math. You just add the two together. It's a little over 34%. And so I told her, I said, what that means is, even though she's here to understand how to get income on her portfolio and not sell principal, by the way, she doesn't want to sell principal. But if she wants more than 1.84% of her portfolio, which is going to be paid to her in the next 12 months, then she's going to have to sell principal regardless if the portfolio jumps up 34% again. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay if that continues. But anytime a portfolio jumps up that high, typically the following year it doesn't do as well. So, or you can also have a loss. So you have no control of what the markets are going to do. So if you have a house and it goes up in value by 34%, if you paid $100,000 for it, it's worth $134,000. I said, but it can't change you financially, and not only that, if you need income and you don't want to give up your shares, then you're going to have to do what? You're going to have to increase the rent. The problem is 1.84%. In her case, only equates to $4,000. She needs $25,000 for the same money. So if she wants to hold on to her principal and enjoy the growth when the growth actually occurs in a given year in this scenario, then you can't sell any of your shares to do that, because every time you give up a share, if you buy Apple, for example, it costs $192 a share today, and if all you spent was the income, then you still got the share. If the share price goes to $210, then you made $18 on your share. So you went up in value. I'm on the G side. Same way with a home. But you can't spend the equity that the value went up unless you do what? You have to sell to get it. So once she understood that, she understood what total return was. Then I got back onto the income train, how to get income from her portfolio. I told her our clients enjoyed a healthy return in the last 12 months. But the first focus was getting the I up, because she and everybody else that meets with us need more income. If you want more income, then you need to find a specialist that focuses on more income. And I'm not talking about getting income from your principal and calling it income. That's different. I'm talking about getting income and calling it income because it's coming in the form of interest and dividends. Don't sell your shares. That's the name of the game. Did you know the next 10 years, it doesn't matter who you choose to help you work, to get you through retirement and get you income. I'm, for the most part, really confident anybody can get the first 10 years right. But if you need money for 20, 25, or 30 years or even longer, depending on how long you may live, then it's going to be the next 2/3 of your retirement, which is going to be very disappointing. And not only that, if you think about it, if your portfolio is dropping in value and you need more income than you started with, that is not a problem that you want to face into the future, because now you can't even keep up with inflation. So that means you have to buy lesser goods, because your money can only go so far because you've lost buying power just 10 years later. So in order to understand how income works, you got to be able to have the right tools. You got to have the right investments. So I got a great source I'd like to get you. It's probably going to take you less than 5 minutes to read, and you may want to read it 4 or 5 times. It's extremely important. In other words, these are the tools that our clients use for income in retirement. It's called the Introduction to the Universe of Retirement Income Strategies. And this report can be yours if you call 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. It's a simple and helpful piece, and we'll mail it or email it, whichever you prefer. Again, that's 888-930-1080. You're tuned in to the Retirement Income Source, where it's all about educating the listener of quit leaving money on the table. I'm Tim Sparks, and today we're talking about understanding how money works. And if you just now tuned in, you probably want to go back and listen to the first half of this show, because the first half of this show, and especially in the last probably 15 minutes, this show's we've been teaching people how money works. And it's a formula. Total return equals I plus G. And I see that this is the number one, the biggest confusion that I get. It's most misunderstood, and sometimes it's all about understanding how money works. And also the person that's helping teaching you how it works. That's the point of this show, is getting more mileage out of your money. If you want to get more mileage out of your money, first thing you got to do is get your eye up to do that. Why? Because that means you're spending less principal. Most people are taking out principal and calling it income and hoping to get it recovered. Sometimes you will and sometimes you won't. I don't know about you. I don't like the idea that sometimes I won't. All that's going to do is increase my stress, and that stress is something that I don't need in retirement. See, I like talking about the income method versus withdrawal strategies, or another way of putting it, spend down schemes. See, majority of the financial advice today is not specializing in income. They're specializing in spending down your money in hopes that they get it back, and they use something called a Monte Carlo. Now, if you think about it, what is Monte Carlo? It's kind of like Vegas, right? I mean, in other words, it kind of sounds exotic in one sense, but it's all about back testing, and to keep it simple, it's more of just mathematical probability that you may or may not run out of money. And once this is shown to you, it washes the hands of the advisors. It washes their hands on it. In other words, they don't have to be the blame, because for sake of full disclosure, they're looking back. They're looking back because they need total return to work for them, and because they don't want to focus on income, so they want to focus on growth. So growth is great. I'm not saying that growth is not a good thing. We all need an inflation hedge. We need growth, but you can't spend shares and have the leftover shares to go up in value, because it takes much harder and harder to get back up that hill. So to them, if there's a 90 percentile successful outcome, that's considered a good thing to them. So in other words, there's still a 10% chance you may still run out of money. I don't know about you, but that's a tough conversation that I'm going to have with that client if I'm being transparent and full disclosure. You see, you can be growth focused going into retirement. Growth is what got you here. But the thing is, it's kind of like heads you win, tails you lose. It's a 50-50 chance. Why? Because you don't know the future. Neither do I. Neither does anybody that tells you that what they're doing is they're trying to sell you on the future by looking at the past. I'm going to be honest with you. If I perfectly knew what was going to happen from the past, and I look back, all of us would have been rich in less than 10 years. But the problem is, nobody knows how to make money going forward. So you got to put people in the best portfolios, the best 5-star rating, 4-star rating funds or ETFs, and hope for the best. You're crossing your fingers, you're crossing your toes, and hoping it all works out. Well, that's because the formulas are created for growth. I'm all for growth, but if you're going to focus on growth in retirement, if you have a 1995 to to 2000 era, then, and that, in other words, that's the first 5 years of retirement, it winds up working out perfectly like it did back then for somebody focusing on growth, then you would have been fine. But the thing is, though, if you started off 2013, where there was 13 years of no growth, then your retirement would have been totally ruined. So, again, it's all about, do you feel lucky? As Clint Eastwood has said years ago in one of his westerns. See, I'm not a big fan of rolling the dice and hoping it works out. I've got to have something in my favor. Why? Because even if you invested for income between 2000 and 2013, you would have rode it right out of there, right out of those 13 years, still got income, never had to worry about touching principal, even though it would have been painful just like it was for anybody that went through it. Nobody wants to see recessions. Recessions affect certain stock-based investments, but they don't affect them all the same way. That's the reason why you want an analyst watching your money. They specialize in investing for income in down markets, not up markets, in down markets. We all can reasonably believe that there's going to be up and there's going to be down markets. We plan for the worst, not plan for the best. So if you would like to learn more of what I mean by that, in other words, it's all about knowledge. It's all about gaining knowledge, so that way you can be more smarter than you were before you probably tuned into this show today. Then I got an excellent book I want to send to you if you're one of the first 5 callers, called The Retirement Income Source, written by CFA Dave Scranton. And I got a free copy for those first 5 callers of today's Retirement Income Source by calling 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. We'll mail this to you if you're one of the first 5 callers. Free, no obligation book. My number again is 888-930-1080. When we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit about fees, because we pay fees, but sometimes people step over dollars and chase pennies because, fees are okay unless they're in the absence of value. The question is what are you paying your fee for? If you're paying a fee to just spend your principal, to me, then you can negotiate your fee at a reduced rate. We're going to talk more on that here just in a few minutes. You're listening to Tim Sparks. I'll be right back. You're dialed in to the Retirement Income Source with Tim Sparks, your host, and our show is sponsored by Sparks Financial Group right here in the heart of the Bluegrass, Lexington, Kentucky. This show is always going to be about the importance of having more income in retirement. Income that I see practically every day, 99% of the time, that people are leaving on the table. And today we're talking about how to understand how money works. In other words, if you're in the market and our clients are in the market, and you found out that equally so we're both in the market, what if I shared with you that you're leaving money on the table, and a pretty significant amount? And so that reminds me about a recent case that came in that had a significant amount of money. They had $3 million, and they came in from the radio show just about a week ago, and they had let their advisor go, or considering letting their advisor go, and have been for the last 6 or 8 months, and I told him, I said, before you do that, I said, let's just make sure that the advisor is not, he may already be, or she may already be taking good care of you here, and you may be doing fine. I said, because we talk about investing for income, and I know that's important to you, but the question is what they were talking about is they felt, they've had their money with this particular advisor for about 11 years, and it's been doing pretty good and everything, but their portfolio has been dropping. And again, they got $3 million left. They're probably still going to be okay in retirement, but we all want to be prudent in retirement. And I think this is exactly what these people was starting to see. And not only that, they were paying a 1% fee. On the 1% fee on $3 million is $30,000 a year. And so what they do, remember me talking about selling shares, they see it each and every month on their statement. And so that was the kind of the plan, is to sell shares and hope to recoup it. Well, so they're looking at, okay, I've got to take out $75,000 a year because me and my wife need income, and we're having to spend another $30,000 in fees. So that's $105,000 coming out of the account. And so I told the client, I said, the question is how much income are you getting? Is it covering the fee? I mean, if it's covering a fee, it may not be a bad deal because you're not selling shares. Because over time, if you're not selling shares, those shares are going to go up in value. It's no different if you have a 100-acre farm, if you have a 500-acre farm. If you have all the acreage, eventually it's going to go up over time. Just live off the crops or the income that the crops provide. And I said, because it's well worth it, because you're getting up there in age and you don't want to do this. This is not something you're familiar with. So, this couple said, well, we think we're going to try to do this on our own. We're considering it because we don't, if we're giving up $30,000, we think that's eroding our principal. I says, well, let's see. So, and they were really, really complaining about the fee. And that, like I always said, a fee becomes an issue in the absence of value. So the question is your money, the fee you're paying coming out of the income, or is it coming out of selling of shares? That's a even worse problem. So if you want to determine whether you're paying unnecessary fees, which we find has been extremely important. One of the values of the retirement risk report is understanding the fees you're paying and what are you getting for that advice. And so this retirement risk report can be yours. What you do is you call our office and schedule that appointment with myself. And what we will do is we will have a phone call first, and then we will start talking about how to get that report to you. And as I'm going to share with you as we end today, what the diagnosis was of this risk report of this particular gentleman that was concerned about the fees. And so this report can be yours, or we get it started if you call 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. And we'll have Allison actually schedule that appointment with myself. We need about 15 to 30 minutes to kind of just had a talk, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll talk about how to get that report. Again, that's 888-930-1080, and it's all about the fees. Remember, we're trying to understand how money works, and so the fee also is impeding on your returns. So it's always important to know what the fees are. So going back to this particular case, it was thinking about letting go of their advisor because of $30,000 a year and on a $3 million portfolio, 1% fee. The fee was reasonable. It's not that at all. Majority fee-based fiduciary advisors typically charge anywhere between 1%, sometimes 2%. I think that's high, but I've seen that type of fee. So when we looked at $3 million, right now they're taking out $75,000 to do the things they want to do, and they're spending another $30,000. That's $105,000. So when I looked at the I that they're getting, interest and dividends on $3 million, they were getting about $40,000 a year because they were primarily in stocks trying to get growth. And so if you're in stocks or getting growth, that means the emphasis on the formula I plus G is more on the G side than it is on the I. So good news is there is still some income there, but they're only getting about $35,000 or $40,000 in interest and dividends. So with that being said, they're taking out $105,000. That means this couple, including the fee, is having to spend $65,000 a year in principal, whether the markets go up or they go down. And so since the emphasis is more on growth, that means they got to hope that they can grow that money back and replace it. Some years you can, other years you cannot. Either way, you're selling shares. If you're selling shares, you're slowly going to be cannibalizing your principal. So you see, first of all, they have a restricted retirement. They're not spending the income they could be making on their portfolio, because they're making about 35 to 40,000 in income. They're spending all of that, and then they need another 65 to 75,000 in income and growth, and so that means they have to sell shares. So I shared with them. I said, hey, because they know we charge a fee as well. I said, did you know that we can get you on this $3 million up to $150,000 a year? In other words, by the way, people, I'm talking about a net return. This is after our fee. Keep in mind, their gross return is only about $35,000 to $40,000. $30,000 of it was going back out in fees, so they were primarily taking $75,000 or $10,000 was getting an interest, and $60,000 was coming from principal. Here, they can get a nice little hefty pay raise, almost double what they're getting right now, what they need, and they can take it from income. So I told them, I said, imagine winning the lottery and you made another $6,000 a year, or 60 crisp $100 bills a month. Could you use that? Have you ever been on an airplane and bypassed first class? Because these people like to fly and stuff. And I asked them, why are you passing up first class? What if you were making more income? It allows you to do those things. You see, income gets people going, gets them thinking about goals that they're missing out on and stuff. So there's more to that. And so, of course, we talk a lot about that in our retirement risk report, and how they can actually achieve that by quit leaving money on the table. Well, we're coming up at the end of the show, and I'd like to get a book in your hand called The Retirement Income Story by author CFA Dave Scranton. Got a free copy for the first 5 callers of today's retirement income source by calling 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. We'll mail it to you if you're one of the first 5 callers. Free, no obligation book, 888-930-1080. I want to thank you for listening to our show, and I hope you learned some retirement solutions today, especially when it comes to understand how the money works. There's so much to talk about, and I only have an hour for this show. And I look forward to joining you again next week for some more information to make sure you have a stress-free retirement. Thanks again, right here on the Retirement Income Source.